Hello everyone, and welcome back to Kayla's Kitchen. Today I have not a tea review, but a coffee review for you. So as you may or may not be aware, Simpson Vail is one of my favorite tea brands, and they also sell coffee. And as I said in one of my most recent tea vlogs, I tend to like to drink coffee as my first drink of the day. It just gets me more woken up than a cup of tea does. And Simpson Vail sells flavored coffees, which for someone who's not, I don't really particularly enjoy the flavor of coffee. This is perfect. So today I'm going to be doing a review of Simpson Vail's salty caramel coffee. So when you purchase coffee from Simpson Vail, you can get it in like whole beans, or you can get it ground in a couple of different ways. So there's a couple of different ways that you can get it. I get it in whole beans since I have a coffee grinder at home, but they have on their order page, they have like a place where you put in a note what way you want it ground, and they have a couple of different options for you. So the package says 100% Colombian coffee beans and salty caramel flavoring create a sweet, buttery, caramel tasting coffee with a slightly salty taste mixed in. So the ingredients are high quality Colombian coffee beans and salty caramel flavor. And when you get coffee, it comes in these bags that have the little wire like notches on the end for folding it over. But this smells exactly like salted caramel. It has a little bit of a coffee smell in there, but mostly you're getting that like saltiness and that really rich sweetness that like a salted caramel has. It smells amazing. I'm gonna try and let you see what the beans look like, but it's a little bit difficult because you can't really see them from inside the package. But they're really dark, sort of shiny, dark brown. I don't know. They look delicious. They smell delicious. And as a little bit of a disclaimer for this video, I don't really like the taste of coffee, so doing this coffee review, we'll see how it turns out. But I really enjoy drinking my coffee. I cold brew it and I make it as an iced latte with some sweetener in it. So for me, when I drink coffee, I drink it for the caffeine, not for the flavor. Well, I drink actually this for the added flavor, but not necessarily for the flavor of the coffee. So I don't drink plain coffee, but I'm gonna try this three different ways for you. I have some hot coffee that I brewed in a French press. I have my cold brew, just plain, that I'm just gonna try iced. And then I have back behind me, I have my iced latte made with the cold brew. And I'm gonna talk about how I did each one of these, and then we're gonna try it. So let's start off with the hot coffee. I have just a very tiny little bit here because, you know. So I brewed just a small amount of coffee, and I just have a little bit in a mug for myself. I brewed this with, I coarsely ground the beans, and then I brewed it in a little French press that I have. This smells, you definitely smell that like dark coffee, but you're also getting some like smooth sweetness. It's so bitter. So bitter. Actually, I'm gonna take that back. It's not so bitter. It's more bitter than tea is, but it's not the most bitter coffee that I've ever tried. It's really smooth. And you really just get like, you're getting mostly that like smooth coffee, but then a little bit of that like salted caramel aftertaste. Yeah, it's not ridiculously complex, but it gets like, it's really bitter at the beginning, but after you swallow, the aftertaste tends to be a little bit sweet and a little bit salty, and it has that like salted caramel feeling. Yeah. So now I have some cold brew that I made, and I made a reel of this that I posted on my Chillin' with Kayla account of how I make my cold brew, and I make it in a little bit of an interesting way. So, and I have two thought processes behind how I do this. So I did a lot of research into how to make cold brew, and I did a lot of research into how to get the most caffeine out of your cold brew, because technically cold brewing coffee would have less caffeine in it than a pot of hot coffee. But when you cold brew, you use more beans than you use in hot coffee. And so the thought process is that cold brew then has more caffeine because you're using more beans. But normally when you would brew with hot coffee, so when you brew the beans hot, you're gonna extract more caffeine than you do when you cold brew it. And so I was thinking, how do I get the best of both worlds? And there's a tea cold brewing technique used for making cold brew with very fruity teas, because if you cold brew something that has this like piece of hard dried fruit in it, the cold water isn't going to be able to extract as much flavor as hot water does. And so the thought process is that you brew it in half the amount of hot water, and then you add half the amount just for like a little bit, for a few minutes, and then you add half the amount of cold water into it and put it in the fridge. And that little bit of hot water sort of helps to open up the dried fruit, and it helps to start the extraction process, so that when it's cold brewing, it can really get in there and take out all the delicious flavor. So my thought process behind the way that I cold brew my coffee is to try and get as much caffeine out of it as possible, while also getting the most like bang for my bean. So the way that I cold brew my coffee is I do 1 cup of coffee beans, and then I add in 2 cups of boiling water, and I let that brew for about 3 minutes. And after letting that brew for 3 minutes, I just kind of stir it up a little bit. Then I add in another 3 cups of cold water and put it in the fridge to let it brew overnight. And after letting it brew overnight, you just strain it out and it's ready to go. So this is some of that cold brewed coffee. It smells a lot sweeter. You're still getting the coffee smell, but it's a lot lighter. Yeah. This is still super smooth. It still is a little bit bitter, but it's not as bitter, and the flavor in general is a little bit sweeter. And I want to clarify, it's not, neither of these are sweet. It's not sweet, it's bitter. But it has a little bit of that, like that aftertaste is a little bit sweet. I don't actually get the saltiness as much in this one, but I would say I get the caramel a little bit more. Yeah, it's super smooth. It just kind of has that sweet, silky caramel. You get a little bit of the saltiness in there, but not as much as the hot coffee. But I would say that the caramel flavor comes through a little bit more iced. Yeah, so now I have my iced latte. And the way that I make this is super simple. I just do ice in my cup, not a ton of ice because the coffee's already cold, so you don't need to like fill it to the brim or anything. So just a little bit of ice, and then I drizzle on some caramel drizzle, and then I pour in my cold brew, only leaving like maybe an inch of room at the top, and then I top it off with milk. Then I just stir it up. But this is the good stuff. This is really creamy from the milk, and you're getting that really, not really strong, but you're getting that nice, sweet, salted caramel. The aftertaste, you get the coffee in there. You get that like sort of a little bit bitter, but you're getting a little bit of the salt, you're getting a little bit of the sweet caramel. But this is creamy, it's sweet, it's delicious. What can I say? I love it. What can I say? The latte is delicious. That's just my taste buds. I prefer that versus having a cup of hot or cold plain coffee. Just so I really like Simpson Vail coffee because it's really helped me be like, oh yeah, I can make delicious tasting coffee at home, and it's actually really easy to make, and it doesn't take a lot of time. Like this cold brewing method, like of active work, like 10 minutes. It does not take long. And it's also 10 minutes like once a week, because the cold brew it'll last a long time because you get like 5 cups of it. So I really like the Simpson Vail coffee. It is definitely my Starbucks replacement, and to be honest, I actually like this. I found that I go into Starbucks and I'll get like, normally I'll get like an iced caramel macchiato or something like that, and I don't like it as much as I like this coffee. So I actually like making coffee at home, like generally better. But that's my review of Simpson Vail's salty caramel coffee. If you have any questions about this coffee, leave them below. I'll try to answer them. Or if you've tried Simpson Vail coffee, let me know what your favorite kind of coffee to get from them is. But that is all for now. So even though this isn't a cup of tea, happy sipping.